It's time for the Access of Easy podcast, the weekly technology digest that keeps you ahead of the curve. Brought to you by EasyDNS.com.
Welcome back, everybody, to Access of Easy. Len and I just having a joke here before the show started. This is the latest and greatest in data breaching and overreaching. I'm Joey, as I mentioned, my colleague, co-host, friend, Len on the other panel. What's going on, buddy? Good to see you. Thursday night. Things are good. No fun league starting in about 45 minutes, as I mentioned. I assume you're not going to be tuning in, as usual.
I have no desire to. It doesn't appeal to me whatsoever nowadays. I used to love watching it, but nowadays I don't really care. But yeah, all is good, Joey, man. All is good. Had some incidents going on as today, as you know. So it's been an interesting day from the beginning to end. But you know what? I'm still standing, which is wonderful. A lot worse things could have happened to me, so I could count my lucky stars. How are you, buddy?
Good. I wanted to have a beer when I got home from work and ended up instead cleaning my entire basement. Got the mop out, spot cleaner for the carpet and the couch, did some vacuuming, taking care of business. My baby shower's on Saturday.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll be hosting a few of the guys, including, I think, my father-in-law Saturday afternoon. We'll be watching, I don't know, college football maybe, or something on TV for a couple of hours while we just kill some time. And then I'll be heading over there to, shake a few hands, say thanks, and do all that good stuff, as everyone always does. Yeah, it should be interesting. But I hadn't cleaned my basement in quite some time. So I figured, you know what, I better get the tools out here, better go hard, better go heavy. And so I still have half of my Coors Light banquet to be consumed during this program. But otherwise, a busy week at work, and good to be kind of back with the end of the summer vibe. I don't know about you, but around where I live, I'm seeing a lot of kids going to school again, a lot of traffic, a lot of parents. I got to say, it's nice. It's a little quiet during the summer. You almost forget what it's like to see all the pedestrian traffic in the fall.
You don't have a lot of kids in your area because there's always
I have tons, but there's like an hour long stretch now where there's just nothing but kids walking by my house.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's every year now. It's been a back to school, and that's another thing. Yeah. So we're going through that. Sabrina started yesterday, and
nice.
Yeah, it is what it is. And yeah, come to the Ye Old Squire on Saturday night, Joe. You go watch us play some NHL.
What time is it on Saturday night?
7 p.m. I think we get.
I might swing by for an hour.
7:30 start.
I'm pretty sure I have some time.
You could be the commentator.
I would love to. Don't tempt me with a good time. I would love to do that. So
do it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Maybe I will swing.
Bring it on. Well, we're streaming it, so if you want to be a commentator, this is going off the beaten path, man.
That'd be great. Yeah. Let's talk about how your data is being misused and abused.
Yes.
So last week's quote for number 365: "The soul contains the event that shall befall it," by Ralph Waldo Emerson. And Rick is the winner. So congratulations to Rick. This week for AOE 366: "Birds born in cages think flying is an illness." If you know who that was by, no Googling, obviously, but if you know who it was by, you can find it in your Bible or your church pamphlet from last week or your Encarta Encyclopedia volumes. Put in the comment section your next round of renewals on the house. No cost. EasyDNS will take care of it. All you have to do is know a little bit of quote history. So then we got 5 stories tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Couple of repeat offenders here. CrowdStrike, obviously. China. Where do you want to start?
Well, the China story is interesting because it's talking about a Chinese student, a university student that decided to use a VPN, and through that to avoid the Great Firewall of China. And he was able to get on Discord and from there talk to people about similar interests, politics, stuff like that, stuff that you could normally not touch with a 10-foot pole in China. And so it's very interesting because looking at this, what's going on, he was arrested soon thereafter. I mean, I'm really accelerating the story here because I want to talk about something that's kind of a tangent to this. He was held for 24 hours and let go because it's all because of tight regulations and censorship that's within China. Now, look what's going on through the world. We look at that and say, this will never happen here. But the reality, it's kind of encroaching in Western civilization. Just today, Elon Musk was posting on X that in the United Kingdom, they are releasing sex offenders from their prisons to make room for potentially people that are posting stuff on X and were arrested because of their thoughts and views and what they're posting. So it's kind of similar to what is happening in China. Now it's happening into a Western democracy. It seems like this type of thing, it's encroaching quicker and quicker. You may think it may never happen, but it may very well come and become a reality. So things people should learn before you even go any further is learn how to use a VPN, learn how to use a good VPN, learn how to use Tor, learn how to cover tracks, especially if you're going to be talking about stuff that is going to be against the elected officials of the day. I'm not saying you should be doing it, but I'm sure people are going to be doing it anyways. And if you don't do stuff like that, if you don't cover your tracks, you might end up like this Chinese student in China might get arrested. Your social credit will be impacted. You may not be able to get a car or a cell phone or anything moving forward, and you'll be continually being watched. It could happen. Like this stuff is not in a too distant future over here. So be careful, be prepared.
Have we not talked about this for both Canada and the United States in the last, I don't know, 3 months?
Yeah, this encroachment seems to be very real. And like I say, you got to be prepared.
Isn't the word to use in this instance and to describe the sort of multitude of instances coordinated? It feels like it might be. I'm not a big, tinfoil hat. They're up against us. They're doing this. They're doing that. I don't know who they is, but there's definitely some coordination here. I've said before on this show that, we're told constantly that governments are sovereign actors. They act in their own self-interest. They never coordinate. They never team up. But when it comes to online surveillance, these guys are like the 92 Dream Team. Are they not? Like, it seems to me that it's like everywhere I look, it's Pippen or Jordan or Barkley or Stockton or Malone, and everyone is just dunking and raining 3-point shots, and everyone is on the same page, and Chuck Daly's on the sideline, and no one wants to win by less than 80 points. Every time it comes to censorship, these guys seem to get their ducks in a row in a real hurry. Hurley, Bobby Hurley reference there, maybe a Freudian slip. In a real hurry, whether it's, surveillance and persecution of people who are speaking outside of the expected norms, or, most recently, I think vaccination is another weird one. Everyone seems to get their ducks in a row on certain things if it means that there's a chance to expand their powers, especially as it concerns online commentary. And to me, this is pretty concerning for a few reasons, but maybe most importantly, the story is very long, and so I won't bore you with the details. But maybe most importantly, that some of the details mirror, as you mentioned, what we've seen in the UK in the last month, what we've seen in Canada in the last 2 years, what we've seen in the States from the current presidential candidate, Kamala Harris, talking about if she wins, she will force online platforms to restrict hate speech and disinformation. That's nonsense. There's no such thing as hate speech. There's no such thing as disinformation. There are things people are fooled by. There are things that call for violence, and everything else is fair game. Okay, this is the way the world works. If you can't adjust to the current state of affairs in the arena of ideas and shared dialogue, it's your problem. The answer is not to squelch and collar every single media platform that wants to have people speak freely. That's not the answer. But when you are losing the fight, Len, that's when that answer becomes more appealing. And here we have another example of that. It is not only in the Far East, as the story notes, but rather here as well. So I would, as you mentioned there, keep an eye on other tools, other protocols like Nostr, and make sure you know how to use these things before you need to know how to use them in order to continue to share your opinions.
Yeah, you don't want to be rushing to the last moment and you'll be kicking yourself at
Exactly.
that time.
Exactly.
Halliburton, this is a Fortune 500 company. They have confirmed that they were nailed by a cyber attack in late August. And as they revealed, and it's quote, the company believes that the unauthorized third party accessed and exfiltrated information from the company's system. And all this was revealed through a filing with the SEC. And they say that the attackers were able to get limited information of the company's operation and corporate functions. And well, who knows exactly what this means with limited, but either way, maybe this information could be sold to their competitors as a way to give them a one-up over Halliburton, I'm guessing, or maybe the threat of selling it could be enough for Halliburton to fork up some money to keep these guys and keep this information under wraps. But either way, Halliburton, they tried to downplay it by saying it won't be impacting their bottom line. And if you check the stock price as of yesterday, I was looking at it, it was down 6%, but the past week. And a lot of it started from this past Tuesday after Labor Day. I guess a lot of it could be just due to the overall market taking a dump, but maybe investors were, also not too happy about this move, and they were punishing the Halliburton for this. But either way, the impacting of this, like if you look at oil and gas, large oil and gas sector, there could be big implications if there is an attack on these type of companies. If you were talking about the extraction, the movement, and the refining of oil, if that is somehow disrupted, it's easy to see how this could impact anybody. They would groceries, the cost of that, driving to work, and impact a lot of different things. So if there is an attack on these large oil and gas companies, man, oh man. And as things get more complicated moving forward, things get more computerized, the potential for an attack grows every day because these systems get more complex. It's more difficult to harden and to defend against an attack. But all I can say, I'm just getting my popcorn. I'm ready to enjoy this show.
I got a quote here from a former Halliburton CEO on what he plans to do if they catch the person or persons who are responsible for this. I was a big supporter of waterboarding. I was a big supporter of the enhanced interrogation techniques. Do you know who said that?
You said it was an ex-employee. I wouldn't know.
Ex-CEO.
That's not Bush, is it?
Dick Cheney, his VP.
Ah, okay. Close. That was very close.
Yeah. I mean, I love a good Dick Cheney reference. We haven't been able to make one, I think, in the 16 or 18 months we've been doing this program. So that's a welcome new addition. To your point, is there any, industry, silo, company, sector, you name it, that's immune or safe from these kinds of attacks at this point?
Blockbuster.
Are they still? They're not still around, are they?
There's one store in, I think, in the state of New Jersey. I could be wrong, but yeah, there's one store in operation, and I'm almost certain. I can't say 100%, but I'm gonna say 99% certain that they are immune from these type of attacks.
It's funny to watch sort of the juggernauts of the oil and gas industry, taken down by just these, unattributed, maybe sort of AAA Bush League kind of operations. It makes you wonder, Len, and we've talked about this before too, so it's not the first time we've mentioned this, but it does make you wonder whether or not there are, numerous attacks on significant either infrastructure silos or significant corporate entities, like, think Fortune 500, major NASDAQ entities, whatever, that are just not disclosed. Right? Because it seems to me that this is happening all the time. And the people who are forced to disclose because of their own sort of malfeasance or unpreparedness. But it doesn't mean that the companies who aren't disclosing are not being attacked. It just means they're prepared for when the attack happens, they can contain it in such a way that makes it makes the reward matrix for disclosing an attack like that, uninspiring, let's say, to say the least, I think. But to me, at this point, if you're invested in a company that's forced to disclose, that's almost more of a problem than it is to be invested in a company who's attacked, right? Or compromised. I bet you the compromises happen a lot more. But if your company can't even figure out how to contain the problem and is forced to, send out a tweet or whatever, then that's when you're really in trouble, I think. And Halliburton, obviously, stuck here a little bit, unfortunately, for the shareholders.
Did you know that the SEC instituted a new rule as of December last year, December 2023? It requires these publicly traded companies to disclose material cybersecurity incidents, and it has to be done within 4 business days.
Yeah, they can put in whatever rule they want, but it doesn't mean they have to do it.
What sort of punishment would come out? I mean,
how many hundreds of billions of dollars would need to be the fine, an enforceable fine, for Apple to disclose a cybersecurity incident?
I wouldn't have a clue.
700, 800 billion.
What are they sitting on in terms of cash?
They're sitting on 800 or 900 billion in cash. The market cap is, I think, almost 2 trillion or more than 2 trillion.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, what would the number have to be? Would it be 300 billion, 400 billion? It's almost impossibly large, And even then, like presumably you wouldn't, you'd use Klarna or whatever, buy now, pay later for your SEC fine. So you wouldn't have to pay it all at once. Even then, it still wouldn't be, it's like not at all insurmountable.
And the fine would have to be
enormous.
10%.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever, right? Like everyone's buying the phones anyway. So
I'll make it up.
Yeah, who cares? It's just like when I see rules like that, I think we talked about that rule when it came out back in January. For rules like that to work, the fines have to be sort of directly correlated with the market cap of the company. I'm not convinced that they are. Actually, it seems to me, if I look in the, without having the stats on me at the moment, it seems to me that if I went back in those sort of, cases, you'd almost never see that the fine is commensurate to the size of the company. It would just be like some standard SEC fine is 5 billion, 10 billion, 50 billion. For a company like Apple to disclose a cyber attack in line with the SEC rules, it's got to be 500 billion. Otherwise, they're not considering it. It's not even on the table.
It's like that speed ticket. So like if you're a regular Joe,
if you're doing 149 or whatever, you just pay the ticket and keep going.
No, it's just like it's harder. It's preventing me from going out and speeding because it would hurt me quite a bit in my pocketbook. But if I had tens of millions or hundreds of millions in the bank, I got fined $300, whatever. Yeah. I just pay. But I think in one country, I'm gonna guess Norway, they tie that to your income. So the more you earn, the higher the. So it'd be similar to this. That
it's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea.
I guess. I mean, it's interesting, but either way, CrowdStrike. We talked about them before. Remember us talking about
recent favorite.
Yeah, it was just a couple of months, I think.
CrowdStrike has been in the news quite a bit the last little while.
Well, they were responsible for having many companies go offline. They're now feeling the legal wrath of their mistakes because a bunch of lawsuits are starting to pour in. And if you check their stock price, they were almost at the $400 mark at the very beginning of July. Then once they had some problems, now they're sitting, at least as of yesterday, around $260. So that their market value, their valuation went down quite a bit in the last 2 months. And as for the lawsuits, the terms and conditions that are there, when you buy or install any commercial software, we just basically agree to it. These are probably going to cover a lot of these legal battles. And furthermore, a guy by the name of Rob Wilkins, this guy works for the Florida law firm Jones Foster. He theorized that these many lawsuits will probably be amalgamated into one single class action lawsuit. And if that's the case, I'm going to probably keep my eyes open because I was negatively impacted by this and I want to be made whole again. And I want to get my slice of the pie. But either way, if a class action lawsuit is successful and somehow they could pinpoint negligence as the cause, you just expect the next generation of these terms and conditions to include language to prevent them to get dinged by a lawsuit against this type of stuff. It probably already has some sort of language already in there, but if somehow the legal system finds a way to make them, to find them and to somehow make the lawsuit go through and make them win, the next terms and conditions, it's just going to fix it. So like whatever, it's probably going to hurt them in the short term for this company, but in the long run, I think CrowdStrike is probably going to be okay.
I mean, I have a screen to share here. Delta is one that I see a lot in the whole CrowdStrike story. They think that it's caused them negative reputational harm and all sorts of other things. If I go to the Delta subreddit, okay, I don't even have to prepare for this. This is the top post in the Delta subreddit. So if you're on the podcast, just head to YouTube to give you an idea of what goes on Delta Airlines. Okay, this is a photo of a guy named Huckleberry Hound who has a picture that says "Do not open your window," and it's a Delta flight, presumably, where the engine, looks like Building 6 from World Trade Center. From World Trade Center Plaza. Delta has had so many customer service problems over the last decade that there is just no way that this CrowdStrike thing has caused them any meaningful harm. Not because people didn't experience a negative, sort of day or flight path or whatever because of the CrowdStrike thing, but rather because there is no ground below where they are now for the average customer. No one flies Delta unless they are absolutely forced to. And so I don't particularly believe that the CrowdStrike thing is something you could sue for. There are some other plaintiffs, alleged plaintiffs, I guess, in this story. But I don't know, Len, do you really think that like CrowdStrike was at the core of the issue facing these things? To me, it more looks like our stock price is in the tank. People are unhappy with the service. Our customer service lines are overloaded with people complaining about how dumb we are, how stupid we are, how much of a ripoff it is, how the service is subpar. We got an opportunity here once in a lifetime to pin this on something else. We got to take it. Is that not the more rational thing to think about all this?
It's always the case. Always people are trying to get a quick buck. And if it does go to a class action lawsuit, the reality is, what is every plaintiff going to be?
What can we get? $4, $5, you think? More?
Well, inflation is now increasing the payouts. So probably get $8 or $9.
You think they track it to CPI?
It has. There's got to be some sort of metric that's including that into the payout, right?
I don't know.
Whatever it is, let's talk about X. And this is they're going through some battles in Brazil because there was a Supreme Court ruling in Brazil, and it banned the platform in that country. And this not only applies to the app that people use on their phone, but also for people that are using the computer. If you go and use an X user on your computer in Brazil, you're going to have some issues over there. At least you were. Things have changed a little bit. And yeah, so it's all because of the fact that the Supreme Court, they were angry, or they pointed out that Musk removed the legal rep that was supposed to represent X in this case. And Musk removed the legal rep because he says that the judge was threatening her with arrest. So you can see why, for her safety, if there's any validity to that, why it is that they removed that. But so without a legal representation here, unfortunately, they can't move any further with this court case, and they can't defend themselves, because according to the Supreme Court, they say that foreign companies in Brazil, they must have legal representation to operate there. So obviously don't have it. Well, I can see why they made this decision. And they were saying at one time, this has been, from what I understand, rescinded. People that were trying to get around this ban and use VPNs, and they were at one point being threatened up to $8,900 US per day. So that's quite a bit. It doesn't matter which country it is. Brazil, more, you're not earning a heck of a lot. That's a real way of stopping people from using VPNs, but that's been done anyways. But either way, it's not the first time Brazil has gone after one of these social media platforms. They did the same thing with WhatsApp back in 2015 and 2016. And the reason why they went after them and WhatsApp went dark too for a few times in those years was because WhatsApp was not willing to comply and provide information for user data and give that to the police. So there you go. This shines a light on decentralized services like Nostr that cannot be shut down. But either way, sucks for people in Brazil. A lot of people have changed their VPNs if they are using it to show that they are in Brazil, to try to make things a little more hairy for them. I have done the same thing. And it's a crappy time over there if you are an X user, but we'll see what happens.
Pretty standard stuff here, right? From the article, de-escalation is a troubling development for free speech, marking a significant escalation in governmental attempts to control online discourse. We talked about that. This order, which demands that X appoint a legal representative and comply with censorship directives, represents a stark instance of government overreach by targeting, quote, misinformation and, quote, hate speech, specifically linked to government critics. The move suggests a politically motivated effort to stifle dissent, a core element of democratic societies. We could talk about Brazil if you want, but where else does that sound like it might apply or have parties want to apply it?
Anywhere, right?
Everywhere is the answer. And so I will also note that the US government, Canadian government, European governments have been silent on this issue. These are the same governments who called into question election results overseas, called into question riots, called into question, quote unquote, hate crimes and hate speech, silent on this. You be the judge as to why. I'm not going to plant any thoughts in your head, but to me, it's a fairly obvious answer and a troubling one at that.
Hacktivists. Never heard that term before. Hacktivists. I like that.
Excuse me? You've never heard that term
before? I don't think I've heard that term.
What about anonymous? They're hacktivists.
I know what anonymous is, but I've just never heard them assign
Wow.
that term before. That's either way, I like it.
What do you give it? Are
So
you rating it?
no, it sounds like it's a long-standing term. So obviously I live under a rock. So why am I going to rank this thing? Well, okay. So we have the arrest of Telegram's leader Pavel Durov, and that was in France, and that sparked a bunch of hackers to unite and cause some chaos to France. And they use this hashtag called #FreeDurov. That's a way to try to unite people. And this was essentially a coordinated attack. It was a DDoS attack launched by what is said here in the article, pro-Russian and pro-Islamic hackers. So what was being targeted were websites for the French government, like agencies, healthcare institutions, airports, educational institutions, and private companies. But really, if you look at this, the timing is bad. I know Durov was arrested not too long ago, but if this happened during the Olympics, it would have been way more impactful if the hackers were able to do something. Like, let's think, all our eyes were glued on a heavyweight battle between XY versus XX. If somehow this was prevented from us watching, we would be noticing this. We'd be very angry what was going on. And by the way, those who bet the money on XY winning, that was easy money after the fact. Good for you for being a long-term thinker here. Either way, Durov, he was since been released, and as a result, the attacks have slowed down. So it looks like that this hive mentality, I don't know if it worked in order to help release him, but it shows that there's a lot of people that are upset of what has happened. A lot of people use Telegram. I'm not going to say that it's a secure way of messaging, but still a lot of people seem to love that. Also, they don't love the fact that they arrested him per se. He's almost been martyred, so to speak. And so, yeah, these hacktivists are just, they were doing their thing, but has since slowed down.
Did you read about 2 hours ago or 3 hours ago? What's the guy's name? Durov, I think, right? Yeah, Durov.
Yeah, Durov is Pavel Durov.
Released a message on Telegram for the first time and basically said, I'll quote from the message: "We are prepared to leave markets that aren't compatible with our principles because we are not doing this for the money. We are driven by the intention to bring good and defend the basic rights of people, particularly in places where these rights are violated." Kudos to him. I think that you're going to see much the same way that we talk every week about, certain kind of small time black hat hackers grabbing hospital data and throwing it on the dark web, or grabbing, used car data, credit data, other government honeypot data. If you listen to the show, or if you're kind of tuned into these things, this happens all the time. The same way that happens, these guys can also turn their guns toward you, right? Metaphorically speaking, of course, as a government that arrests someone who they view as wearing the same jersey. Durov, by I think any measure, probably wearing the same jersey as privacy-focused people. A lot of folks who do stuff like data breaching and overreaching, maybe as a black hat or white hat, depending on how you view the whole kind of circumstance. You don't want to upset these people. And I think that it's kind of in the same vein, Len. And we've said this a lot over the years on our show and on CBP, or on AOE and CBP. What you're seeing is an inability of governments and sort of larger agencies to adapt. And you see it in finance and economics, but also you see it in stuff like this. There was a time when you could easily kind of quell an uprising like this. Think about Occupy Wall Street or something similar. It's easy. People run out of food. They run out of money. They run out of ammunition. They run out of time. They run out of whatever. Their wives get mad at them, come back home. But when you're talking about something like this, it's pretty easy to just kind of do this from the modern comforts of whatever you're doing in your day-to-day life. And this is going to happen more and more frequently. The one thing I thought too, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, we never saw anything like this for Assange, right? I don't think. I haven't followed that story super closely over the years, but I don't remember ever seeing like a government DDoS or government hacking attempts or anything like that over Assange's capture. But this guy seems to have been the flint, right? He's really caused the firestorm here.
Yeah. The thing is, this, I guess because people use this so much, Assange was just providing information. So it's a little bit different. I mean, people were actually using the product here versus that he was trying to shine a light on some shenanigans that was being done by governments. or United States per se. So I don't know. It does seem a little odd, but I just have to point out there are alternatives. If they want to leave markets that are not friendly to Telegram, there's Signal, there's Key, there's
Session.
Session. There's, gosh, I even have another on my phone. I could take a look at. Simplex is another one. There's a bunch you can use, and look at those options. And I understand where Telegram is coming from, but the reality is this is still a centralized thing. It's got a founder. It's got somebody behind it. A lot of these other things I've mentioned, they're community driven, right? So good luck trying to stop these things. Just like Nostr, good luck trying to stop that. If you want to go after the CEO of Nostr, it's like going after the CEO of Bitcoin. We'll just nobody to attack.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Like at the end of the day, I think I said this either last week on this show or on CBP. This equates to like governments wanting to listen when you're whispering to somebody. Think of a situation where, you and I are talking to each other. I whisper something to you and a third party comes up and says, "Hey, what did you say?" And I say, "Well, it wasn't meant for you." And then they arrest me for saying that. It's the same thing. You don't know what the content was. You don't know if it was, am I planning a riot? Am I planning an uprising? Or am I just, telling Len that I think maybe you had a bit too healthy of a summer? I don't know. It could be any of those things. But the idea that you arrest me for whispering it is not palatable for many people. And I'm happy to see, I think this is a product of demographic shifts too, by the way, as more and more young people begin using these services. I'm happy to see that people take this seriously at such a level that you see DDoS attacks and whatnot, and people generally upset by the arrest of a guy who runs a service like this. So, sort of a silver lining, let's say, on an overall dark-ish situation.
Do you think they're ever going to come after me for sunning my nuts?
Are you sending your pictures of your nuts on Telegram?
No, I'm sunning them.
Oh, sunning them.
Yeah, like
only if you tell them. Only if you tell them they can't look.
Yeah, like just don't look. Like fuck. I'm just I just want to get them sunned, right? I want a nice tan down there. Right?
That's right. They're looking a little too much like pistachios. They need to look more like walnuts. So that's it tonight. God bless everyone listening, watching. Enjoy the first week of the No Fun League. And
no chia pet down there. You do not want the chia pet going on.
This has been, as always, the latest and greatest in data reach and overreach. And I'm Joey. That's Len. And we will see you next week.